Greetings. This is Mushtaq Memon, Professor Emeritus from Washington State University. It's my pleasure to have a conversation today with Malini Desai. She is a veterinary student here at University of Georgia. I met her about maybe a year ago or so and found her to be, I would say, even born leader. She leads quite a few student organizations here at the Veterinary College at UGA, and I saw many built-in qualities which leaders should have in her. For example, the last time I offered, with her help, acupuncture laboratory, and she was telling the students, how this thing should be organized, and people listened to her. And then when everybody was done, she's one of those leaders, what you call, service leaders. She even mopped the floor. So just tells you that how much she's in that. So I thought it would be really worthwhile to get a little more insight from Malini, and I'm just so happy to have you, Malini. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So first of all, I would like to request Malini if she could introduce herself briefly to tell us where she was born and how her education was before getting to UGA. Please.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. My dad's family is from India by way of a couple other countries. So he was a first generation immigrant to the US. My mom was originally from Kansas, so a mixed family growing up. I did my education from elementary school through high school in Georgia. And then I went out to Colorado State for my undergrad, which I loved. I got my biomedical sciences major out there. Ended up getting into vet school and deciding to come back home to Georgia, mostly for the in-state tuition. Came back here, and now I'm a second year in the UGA's program, and I've been really enjoying it.
Wonderful. Now, how do you get interested? Now, you did mention that your father was from India, and my observation is many of our South Indian parents would like to see their children become human doctors rather than veterinary doctors. Is there something that you would like to, share some light on, please?
Yeah, I definitely felt pressure from my family to consider or maybe reconsider a human medical field instead of veterinary medicine. It was kind of just one of those things where it called to me. We had some pets growing up, and I was always really invested in their care. One in particular developed degenerative myelopathy, so slowly lost the ability to walk. And I was probably in end of elementary school, so I was catheterizing him before I went to school and coming home from school, and I would do the same routine and taking care of him, and I really enjoyed it. And what really pushed me into it was I found my neighbor's duck. And it turned out that he was a veterinarian and his duck had gotten out. And so I returned it to him, and he offered me a position as a kennel technician because I was able to successfully return his duck to him.
Wonderful.
And I tried other things, but it just didn't call to me as much. I just prefer, I think, a little bit of the challenge of veterinary medicine, not having a patient who can speak back to me and also being able to be an advocate for something without a voice. It just fit more with my personality than the human medical fields. But I can safely say my family wasn't necessarily on board at first. They figured, why not do something more profitable and go into human medicine? You'll have a better name essentially as a human doctor instead of a veterinarian. But they have gotten on board since they're
Okay,
supporting me
good,
now.
good. This brings up a few other things that I was thinking about. I know that you are also involved in Asian Veterinary Association, and there's quite a bit talk about in our profession that how we interact with animal owners from
Yes.
different backgrounds. And I'm sure you have come across how some of the folks from South Asia who do not own pets, they have a different attitude about it. So could you
Yeah.
maybe shed some light on that whole issue of owning a pet and being from other places, you know?
I can try. It's only from my own personal perspective and what I've seen and interacted with my own family, of course. But I think there is a lot of fear around owning dogs in particular. And there's a distrust. I don't think the human animal bond is quite the same. It's not something cuddly that you're going to have up in your bed with you. It's maybe something that's for protection or something that is untrained. I know with my family, I grew up with dogs with my dad, but my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, they would tolerate visiting with them, but it was very much something where they preferred the pets to be farther away or in another room. And as they got more comfortable visiting us over the years and over the pet's life, then there was a lot more of a relaxed demeanor and they became very attached as well. But it is, I have noticed that it is a very different attitude. It's not necessarily like, oh, what a cute little puppy, I want to go and get right next to it. It's like, okay, that's a dog over there and I'm perfectly happy where I am over here.
Well, you know, you being a female, I'm sure you understand the gender shift in our profession. You know, when I went to school, we barely had any females, but that was a long time ago. But now, as I travel around, not only in the United States, but many of the even other European countries, females are becoming in majority, and even our American Veterinary Medical Association tell us that their membership has become more than 50% are now female. So, is the gender shift is anything good in our profession, or you think that this is kind of uneven distribution of gender?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I do think that there is a loss of diversity and perspective whenever something becomes majority one way or another. Um, but it is a field where I feel very comfortable. There's been situations where, like last night, I was called in for a surgery and everybody in the room was a woman, which was very interesting. It's not something that you really see outside of veterinary medicine. And it was a very fun, safe dynamic, but I do think that there's a loss of perspective if you don't have other influences from other opinions and different backgrounds. So I would say it's a mixed bag, maybe not entirely good, not entirely bad.
The other thing comes to my mind is the practice of veterinary medicine. You know, many of our general public sees veterinarian from television, and they see this, you know, large animal veterinarian is going from farm to farm, deliver calves and things like that. And talking about delivering calves, as I understand, we have a shortage of rural veterinarians or food animal practitioners. Any insight on that? Do you think because they're majority ladies now that they would not go in rural areas? Please tell us something about
I think it's very dependent on the individual. I can absolutely see how it would be difficult to have the practitioner environment and try to start a family going farm to farm, young kids, or trying to have kid like that's a lot. It's a lot of moving around. I think a bigger component of it though is probably the student debt and the finances. Now there are options, at least in the States, I don't know about elsewhere, but for some debt repayment, but there are only so many positions that offer repayment. So in the face of the amount of debt we get trying to get to our veterinary education, it becomes very difficult to say, okay, this is the type of medicine that I prefer, but I'm not going to be able to make as much to be able to pay off my loans versus small animal general practice and emergency where it's significantly more lucrative with more downtime.
you bring a very good point about the debt. You know, the students have, so they have to work for many years to pay off. So does it mean that still people want to get in the veterinary profession? Is it still a demanding profession in the United States, you think, or there's going to be some decrease in popularity or, you know, the liking of the profession?
I think right now it's still a very popular profession, and I think it's going to remain that way with the people who are dedicated to the animals. A lot of people going into this field aren't doing it to try and make the money. If they were interested in the medicine, they were more likely to become a doctor, to be quite frank. It's not that the profession isn't lucrative, especially now with some of the practice ownership options, and the salaries are increasing. So, and with corporates offering more sign-on bonuses and a whole bunch, there's a lot of factors going into it. But I don't think that the profession would ever die out necessarily. I don't know. I think it depends on the trajectory of how vet medicine is run.
Well, if you don't mind, I may ask you your personal question. Where you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years from now?
That is a very challenging question. I don't know what I want to specialize in yet or do really yet. I know I really enjoy emergency medicine, but I have really fallen in love with large animal and small animal and exotics and some wildlife research that I've done. I kind of have my hands in a whole bunch of different areas. And so I genuinely don't know if I was to go into the realm of GP, I would probably need to be a practice owner to have something else a little bit more challenging on my plate, just rather than the routine of regular appointments. I kind of thrive in the chaos, so probably something in an emergency field, but I have no idea what it's going to look like.
Well, thank you very much, Malini. It's a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and I'm sure many of our viewers will see the insight, what is the future of veterinary medicine and how our upcoming leaders are thinking about it. So, Melanie, I wish you well and look forward to seeing you in our professional leadership positions. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.